Welcome to Relationship Equity, a podcast that explores how successful people cultivate meaningful connections with others in their personal and professional lives. Learn from the stories, insights, and advice of leaders, innovators, and influencers who have built strong bonds with their teams, their customers, their communities, and their families. Here's Richard Walker.
My guest today is Michael Jones, the president and CEO of Delta Dental of Arizona, where he leads with a focus on innovation, community impact, and building meaningful relationships across every level of the organization. With a background in healthcare and consulting, Michael brings a collaborative, people-first approach to leadership that drives both business results and lasting connections. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here, my friend.
You're very welcome. Okay, so with my producer, with Joseph, it was brilliant. I'm going to start with a crazy topic, and then I'm going to go backwards and sideways and up and down. And he just mentioned to you, before we came live here, that I am a pepper farmer. Well, that's not really necessarily the truth. So you're like this. So we had a big AI summit hosted at Best Buy last September. And I knew everybody. We had nearly 500 people there. It was a big audience. The place was absolutely jam-packed. We actually had an extra room with a screen. We had to turn people away. We had a wonderful group of people. One of our keynotes was the head of AI at the White House, Matthew Bashagi, wonderful guy. And then a lot of local executives that you know from the time when you're in the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. But I was the MC for the event, and I announced to everybody right up front, and most people know that I'm not a technologist. And they know that about me. I just hire really intelligent, brilliant technologists, and they make me look good. So I announced at the very beginning.
Yeah, relationships, right?
Exactly right. We'll get to the relationship stuff in a minute, but you'll love this. I announced right at the very beginning that at the end of the summit, I'm going to reveal an AI product that I created myself. I invented an AI product. So here's what we did. Get to the end. We did have a little demo of the AI tool that York's created. And then I talked about the personal AI product that I actually created myself from scratch. And here's what we did, Michael. Picture this. On the screen, picture of a big donkey with fire coming out of its backside. Now, what I created was what I called AI hot sauce. I grow peppers. I make my own hot sauces. So the AI stood for and stands for As Inferno. AI hot sauce. So it's an AI product.
I guess the word qualify, and the only thing that I would say is, okay, that means you have to send me some so I can try it.
Oh, you get some. So I was just telling Joseph before we got on here that in the Twin Cities this year, we've had a very wet summer, and the grass, I've never seen it greener, which the only downside of that, my pepper crop, it's taken a little bit longer to come through because they need a lot of hot, where you are right now, there won't be a problem with that. A lot of intense heat and whatever. Anyway, so there's a little bit of fun to get started. Oh. But I want people to know, I mean, I've known you, I was looking back when we first met. First 10 years ago when we first met, and then we served on and funnily enough, Michael, this morning I was actually a guest at Genesis Works podcast. And now, we served on the board of Genesis Works. And,
yes.
And we had a very... it was an incredible conversation that we had about that. And I want to get to that. I'll shelve that for a second because it really is part of what I wanted to talk about today, with the importance of relationships and how it's really molded your life as a person, yes, as a human, and as an executive. But before we go there, I'd like people to get to know who Michael Jones is a little bit. Just give us some information on your background. I mean, most people won't know that you actually did an engineering degree. So tell us a bit about you, where you grew up, and I'll shut up and give us 5 minutes on who Michael Jones is and on all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, a lot of people don't know that I have an engineering undergraduate degree, but I'll get to the education here in a second. So I'm a Chicagoan, Richard, as you know, born and raised there. I was raised in the inner city of Chicago by a single parent mother who's an incredible, incredible woman that raised me and my older brother. Education is a big part of our family structure. And so I had the distinct honor of being the first person to go away and graduate from an undergraduate institution in my family. And then beyond that, I'm happily married to my wife Jocelyn. We have 2 adult children. They are out adulting. They do not live with us. So in other words, they're off the payroll.
Right.
But
Yep.
we have a very, very close family structure. Love spending time with my family. Love doing a lot of things, sports, entertainment, music, arts. And certainly I have my passions, and that one of them was Genesis Works when I
Yep.
was on board there. So
Yep.
much so that not only was I on the board with Genesis Works, but I had the honor of speaking to many of those students throughout the time that I was a board member there,
Yep.
because our backgrounds were very similar. And
Right.
so I look to give back to, people in those positions, because I greatly understand how important it is to encourage and give that hand up to people that need
Yep.
it. Yeah, educationally, undergrad in engineering. I actually have an MBA. So I've got an MBA in strategy and finance. And what can I say? A long, great career with many highs and lows. You learn
Yep.
from them all, right, Richard?
Yep. Right.
And ultimately, I am where I am right now. I get the pleasure of being the CEO of Delta Dental of Arizona. And I'm also the president and chair of the Delta Dental of Arizona Foundation, where we do some magnificent things here in the state of Arizona. I spent time there in Minneapolis. You mentioned that. Moved all over the country, mostly in the midsection of the country, Minnesota, and as far south as Texas, and a lot
Yep.
of places in between. So
Yep.
anyway, those are a few quick highlights.
Now, for those people that don't know anything about Genesis Works, let me just give you the 2 minutes on Genesis Works.
Absolutely.
It's a non-profit organization that literally changes lives. It changes the course of people's lives. It provides opportunities for young adults and very young adults in the underserved communities, changes the trajectory of their life by providing
Yes.
internships in their senior year of high school, that early high school. And it's life-changing. Now, when this program was socialized to me by my good friend Tim Toole, who introduced me to Jeff Tollefson, who was the executive director at the time, it was a no-brainer. Within seconds, I was hooked. Now, I want to tell a little story, Michael, that you might not remember this, but I was personally hooked by this program and I'll give you the reasons. But when I met with you for business reasons, when you were at Be the Match NMDP, as it is now, as it was, and as it is again, you asked me a question. And I didn't answer it fully. I didn't lie, but I didn't answer it fully. And I followed up with an email to you. The question was, why are you interested in Genesis Works? Why do you want to be on the board?
Right.
And my answer, if you remember that, it's a
Yes.
long time ago. So
Yep.
I'll explain and I'll paraphrase it. I don't have the email still, but this is how I answered it in person with you. It's a good organization, and I like to give back.
Right.
That was truthful. But I had a personal attachment to it. And don't you find that if you have a personal attachment to anything, you're much more likely to give a lot more and to give it your all and not just do it surface level because you kind of think you should. So my personal attachment was that if it wasn't for the youth service, I wouldn't have been in front of you then. I grew up in a very small town in northern England where the opportunities were either into farming, which is my whole background, or into the trades, or into one of the factories. And I went into the trades. And yeah, I always wanted more, but didn't know how, didn't know what I could do. So when I got into the youth service, they created an opportunity for me, and they really put their arm around me, and they did the same thing for me that Genesis Works does for its young adults. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be speaking with you today. So I felt compelled, if I can do something to help change one person's life for the better, I'm bloody well doing it.
I echo that, Richard, and I appreciate you reflecting back on that conversation, because it was a critical moment. Because at that stage, what we were talking about and what I was trying to impress upon you, and also ascertain from you in that
Right.
conversation, was, is this guy's heart and
You're right.
head
Is he
in the
for
right
real? Yeah.
place, right? And
Yeah.
is he real, or is he an imposter?
Right.
because the
Yeah.
work that we were doing, as
Yeah.
you know, required two essential elements. One, you needed to have your head and heart in the game, because it was hard work, and there is not a lot of accolades and thank yous that go
Right.
with it.
Yep.
But more importantly, you needed to understand how to cultivate the relationships both on the board, in the community, and within the organizations throughout Minneapolis, St. Paul, because of the need for the support from those organizations, all these many companies that were donating to Genesis Works.
Right.
So
And and I'm very proud to say that my company, I served my 2 terms on the board, but we still invest a lot into Genesis. I know I'm not talking just financially, but I'd actually talked to the graduating class last week, or was it week before? And I was on and I think I was the only big fat white guy in the room, Michael. And they're probably all looking at me thinking, "Who the hell is this big fat Englishman, and why is he talking to us?" But I can't tell
hey,
you.
Richard, they were also probably thinking, and what is he saying? I don't understand.
Yeah, I had to talk slower and really articulate. But I gotta tell you, so I was a guest on Genesis Works podcast this morning, and I told him the same thing. I went away from that meeting energized, so energized because of the passion in that room. And I gotta tell you, they seemed to really take to me once I kind of told my story, because I am passionate, truly passionate about helping people succeed,
Oh,
and you
it's relatable. The
very
stories are
yeah,
relatable, right? And that's what bonds you and connects you with people. I tell you, you've had the opportunity of hearing me do the keynote at their end of the year thing many times,
right,
and I tell people all the time that no, I got so much out of doing that because they were inspiring to me.
yeah,
You
yeah,
you hear those
yeah,
stories. How can you get up and
yeah,
fail them, right? You're
yeah.
going to pour into them. So,
So what I was very impressed by, because I went there with no agenda. The what I had no slides, I had no talking points, nothing, and it was intentional. Because ahead of time, I was asked, "Do you want questions? Do you want to talk?" And I said, "No, I am there to serve them, and I want to talk to you about what your definition of servant leadership is, because it's been said by a lot of people. This is the epitome. This is, if you want to talk about what a servant leader is, it's Michael Jones. So I want to talk about that." So I went there, and what I wanted to do is answer their questions. That was it, and not impose upon them what I think. And I was so impressed by the kinds of questions that they asked to really help them understand what I felt they needed to do because I think in terms of bridges, one of the biggest bridges that a young adult can take is to go from high school into further education. That's a big bridge. It's a big change. High school, you're told what to do. Here's your classes, here's your curriculum. You're going to get in trouble if you don't show up. When you go to college, different story. You're on your own, man. I mean, if you don't want to go to class, you don't go.
that's
So
right.
it's a
Mhm.
big bridge. And then that next big bridge, of course, is into the working world. And that's a massive leap. And it's very hard to truly prepare. And I was asked so many good questions. And I'll just tell you one question, Michael, that was asked. What is the best, most important thing for me to do when I go to college? And so I'll answer that right now. And there's a million things, not just one. But I said 3 things, and it applies where you are right now. 3 things: networking, networking, and networking. Build your relationships, start early, create a network of people. Now, that's easier said than done, because what does that truly mean? So I'm going to ask you. You have lived the networking game, throughout your career. You intentionally have the right people around you, and you can't start soon enough. I'll give you a little before you give you 30
Yeah.
seconds to think about your answer there. But I just met with a very accomplished senior executive. She was at a company for 22 years, and she devoted her career to that company. But things changed, and she decided it was time for her to leave. She left of her
Yeah.
own accord, and she's told me she doesn't know one person outside of the 4 walls of that company. And this is
Good.
a very accomplished executive. And that's not the first time I've heard that. I've heard that many times. So I try to impress upon the youngsters, build a network and build it early. So talk to me about that, Michael.
I couldn't agree with you more. I would add a few other things to that list of getting ready for college, but we can come back to that another time. But yeah, let's talk about the networking piece because Richard, you're absolutely right. Network building, relationship building is critically important to your success, uh, no matter what you're doing. And that's the important thing that a lot of people need to understand because I think oftentimes people look at network building or they have a misled definition of what we're talking about here. Oftentimes people hear, "Oh yeah, go network, go build relationships," and they think, "Oh, that means go brown nose with the bosses and so on and so forth." Well, I don't subscribe to that, and that's not who I am. That's not what I do. You know that for a fact. But really, it's about establishing genuine, authentic relationships with people, knowing that guess what? Ultimately, whatever you do, whatever level you at, whatever you're going to do with your life, people are essential to your success. You do not get things done in a vacuum, as you know. No one does it on their own. And so establishing and cultivating these relationships to learn how to work with people, to get to know them, to work on your social skills, to frankly find a genuine interest in people, in other people, not just yourself, is a way of broadening your perspective. It gives you insight into things that you would probably never think about, and it gives you exposure. All of those things help you become a better person, and they certainly have been a vital role in my success, going forward, whether it was high school, college, afterwards, working here, on boards, whatever it is. I would add this to the equation, and that is, oftentimes people don't know. They say, and I've had people that I've mentored before, and they say, I don't know how to network. What do I do? How do I do it? First of all, kudos and bravo that you raised your hand and went to someone and said, I don't know how to do it. That's okay. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but it's a shame when you don't go out and get answers. So what I would offer is this: look, start first by just getting out of your comfort zone and getting to meet people and take a genuine interest in learning about them. Ask questions. You don't have to, frankly, you don't have to do a lot of talking if you're networking, right?
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's number
Yeah,
one,
but
right?
yeah, there you go. But it's, hey, Richard, let's say we never knew each other and I met you at a social setting. Well, this is not a good example because both of us, we're pretty extroverted like that. We wouldn't have this problem, but I'll go through it and make the point. If I bumped into you, hey, how you doing? First time here, something like that, and you start talking, and right away I'm gonna pick up, oh, this really unique. Hey, by the way, I'm curious, where are you from? Start asking questions about people. Get curious about
Get
them.
curious.
Yeah, and listen, listen, listen. When you hear, you'll pick up things that you'll get from them that you need to circle back around to and ask about. That's the beginning of genuine networking. And the last part there is, well, how are you being authentic? Right? One of the big problems, frankly, common mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to relationship building or networking or however you want to talk about it is first, they're trying to be something they're not. Right? Don't be someone. I'm never going to be, I'm not Richard Walker, right? I'm not charming. I don't have the accent like that. I got my own style, right? But it falls very short of Richard Walker, right? But don't try to be something you're not. Being robotic, stiff, and not genuine doesn't work. Don't focus on making relationship building transactional only. Big mistake that a lot of people make. Well, I'm going to get to know them so I can sell them something or they'll buy something or give me something. You're missing out. You will see some small gains from doing that, but over a career, over a lifetime, it's going to fall short. Work on being authentic, talk to people, you could disarm people that way. That's the goal, as in GOLD, that lies in building authentic relationships, is lifelong partnerships, success, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me add a couple of things to that, Michael. I couldn't agree more with you, obviously. And the couple of things I learned very early on that were taught to me, kind of rammed down my throat for good reason. The first one being my very first boss when I got into a business in America in 1932, wherever the hell it was. He said, listen, man, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion.
That's right.
What he was
That's
saying
right.
is you're talking way more than you're listening.
That's
Now,
right.
the other thing on top of that, which I think is even more brilliant, ask questions with the intent of hearing, not
Right.
responding. Now,
Right.
and for somebody that like me, who my brain works way too fast and often make mistakes, and if I've had too much caffeine and I'm talking too fast and talking too much, I gotta deliberately slow myself down and let people talk before, because I have a tendency, my wife yells at me all the time, of interrupting, and I catch myself doing it. Now, I'm old and I've been doing this a long time, but I still have to work on that, because if you ask somebody a question, let them damn well answer it.
Right.
Right? Because
No, that's right.
I find myself cutting people. Now, think about this. Why do people tend to finish other people's sentences?
They're not listening.
Well, they're
They're
not listening, but it's also because they want to come across as smart, that they know what they're going to say next. Right? Let them finish and agree with them. But the other thing you said that's so important is when you hear when somebody does respond, and this gets into the complexity of human dynamics, it's your follow-up questions from that that are
yes,
important, because that shows that you're listening and it shows that you actually care about what they're saying,
correct.
rather than, and now, networking events, I hate them. If I really do, I've never liked them because it's forced and it's a difficult thing to do, to actually get to know somebody. When, if there's one fish there, it's easier to catch that one fish, and if it's with 1,000 others, there's too many. But they're important events to go to. Now, so I'll give you an example of a situation that I had not too long ago. I was at a caribou, and the CIO asked to meet with me for the first time. I wanted to pick my brain on some stuff, and I didn't even know what he wanted. So I sat down with him outside of the caribou, and I hadn't even started talking with him yet. When I got my coffee, sat down, and a young fellow walked by, nicely dressed, had a tie on, had a suit, and I said, "You look good, man. You must be interviewing," kind of joking with him. And he turned around and he did that, Michael. He laughed and he said, "Actually, no, I'm here for a conference." I said, "That's great. Where are you going? What conference?" And he told me. I said, "Where did he come from?" He said, "California." You could tell he had a different look and a different vibe than your typical Minnesotans around here.
Right.
So I had a 3-5 minute conversation with him. And then I said, "Sorry for being rude. I'm here to meet with this fella." And then he took off. I wished him the best, and off he left. And the fella I met with, now get this. This is a CIO, a very accomplished CIO in the Twin Cities. And I said, "So how can I help you?" And you know what his response was, Michael? "I need to learn how to do that." Do what?
Right.
Strike up a
Right.
conversation with
Strike
somebody
up a
that you don't know.
conversation. Right.
I mean, I took back to your point earlier, I took genuine interest in this guy. I didn't know him. And if you've got that genuine interest, like we do, that it's easy to do. If you don't, and some people are intimidated, and they kind of hold themselves back because they would have felt that was intrusive. What I did was intrusive. And I understand that. But the way I engaged with him, I was taking interest in him. And I was curious, genuinely curious, which made it very easy to do. So some people, in my opinion, Michael, let me get your take on this. I believe they're naturally very curious. I mean, look at kids. Take a 5-year-old. Most kids are very curious. They're learning at a young age. They're learning everything. And at some point with some adults, that curiosity kind of goes down. And I don't know why. I'm not a psychologist. And some keep it. I'll be curious for the rest of my life. I want to know how to make the absolute best AI hot sauce I possibly can. I keep trying to improve it and tweak it. But just be curious and ask questions, right?
I couldn't agree more. And frankly, I think some of that curiosity start it's extinguished in us as adults
Why do you
because
think
of
that is? Why?
well, because of experiences, right? You ask a question like that, how many people will answer you, or Richard look at you and say, "Why don't you mind your business?"
Right. Yeah.
And it's a part of, frankly, it's a part of our society where we've lost that common touch and the ability to connect with people. We've lost some of that. I think another element to it, frankly, is people are scared,
Right.
right? Well, how do I ask this question of someone I don't know, and what is that going to make me look like, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, if you're talking about building relationships with people and how do you cultivate those things, you have to lean into that fear. You have to move past that because you can't get there without that. You gotta make some sacrifices. You gotta take some chances. It's all not going to work out, and that's
Right.
okay. But you gotta try.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity of getting to know people not only all over this country but all over the world. And guess what? It all started with some sense of curiosity and openness to ask those questions, to learn about people, and to seek out information and knowledge and insight. So,
To your point, if that young guy that walked past when I asked him, if he hadn't responded positively, and if he had have basically said, "Well, that's a rude question," then I would have apologized. I'm really sorry, but it wouldn't have stopped me doing it again.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But most people it would, Richard, and
Well, that's the point you're making.
that's the
Yeah.
unfortunate point, and
Yeah.
they're missing that opportunity
Yeah.
to learn and grow and develop, and frankly, get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I want to get into servant leadership. But unfortunately, we have to take a break. Next time on Relationship Equity, Michael Jones, the CEO of Delta Dental of Arizona, shares why you should never burn bridges.
Several years later, you may be in a different organization, they're in a different organization. You want maybe business with that organization, or you need to formulate a collaborative relationship or partnership with that other organization. How you handled that transition and how you balance the needs of what you needed to do versus what those people needed to do will be the key in the success in the future.
This has been Relationship Equity. If you want to take your career, your business, or your personal relationships to the next level, reach out to Richard at yorksolutions.net. You can also get Richard's book, Relationship Equity, your cornerstone investment to great gains in business and life, on Amazon now. Relationship Equity with Richard Walker is a production of Forbes Books.